Okay, good stuff. We're ready to go. So welcome to episode 4 of the Bring It Coaching podcast. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking more directly around, I'd say, more mindset, more taking action, planning and organizing things. And I've got somebody on the podcast today to help me out with just that. And I've got Rizwan on with me today. So how you doing, Rizwan?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Nice one. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking out the time. I know you're a busy guy. You're a busy, someone with a busy schedule. So I appreciate you taking out the time. But yeah, I've got yourself on the podcast today, Rizwan, because as I mentioned, today's podcast and episode is all about planning, organizing, and having the right mindset to, I guess, get things done and get stuff that you have potentially on your list of, I say goals and dreams to tick off. And to be honest, I brought yourself on because you're somebody that I know we worked previously in the past before. However, you're someone that does strike me as someone who's pretty well organized and has dreams and goals, and as we've talked in the past before, and even though we haven't really known each other for a long time at all, it's you're someone that basically came to mind. I thought, you know what, let's see where this conversation might take us. Let's get into your views of things and see how you do things, and hopefully that will help not only my audience but people that and other people out there. So like I said, man, appreciate you coming on, and let's hopefully get this podcast and episode going and see if we can get some good golden nuggets out of it.
Appreciate it.
So what I normally do is when I before we sort of dive into like the topics and stuff, just get like a little, I say icebreaker, but I'd say a fun, more of a fun fact about yourself. If you don't mind sharing anything fun or courageous or something interesting for the viewers to maybe listen to. So anything you got in mind that you can share, could be at any time scale in your life, if you don't mind.
My most proud moment is up to 10 years ago, I was always saying to myself, I need to learn how to swim. I can't be that person who's on holiday every single year, like with my daughter, with my wife, etc. And I just can't swim, and I don't enjoy the process, constantly fearful, not trusting myself, etc. And then this year I decided to just take the plunge. So after 6 lessons, I know fully how to swim.
Nice.
Literally like within the last 2 months is when I took those 6 lessons, smashed it now, know how to swim, but now I'm still carrying on the lessons up until I get to like, I can swim 50 meters, 60 meters. Like I want to get to like a great place in swimming rather than just knowing how to swim. Nice. But yeah, man, I did it. And it's one of my most proud moments, to be honest, because I've been putting it off for 10 years. I've been saying to myself, I need to do it. And I've had different excuses all the time. So,
Wow. Yeah, no, that's really good. And that, to be honest, having young kids, I think for me personally is a big thing. And like you mentioned, all the common reasons why people would probably want to learn how to swim is not only for themselves, but like I said, when you start to get a family, small children, you'd want them to learn, or at least I would personally anyway. So that's good, man. What made you actually take that plunge this year then? Why did you decide to do it now?
So every year I've always had that excuse that the times are right in the morning or the times are right in the evening. I can't really sacrifice that family time for this, etc. Then my latest year that I went to in Turkey, I was like, I'm just literally not enjoying anything whatsoever. So definitely, no matter what, within the next year, I have to do it. And then I just started looking around, took some taster sessions, and then I was like, I need to find the right person. And one of my brother-in-laws actually knew someone who could then basically take me in their wing, and they're available, and therefore I was able to take the plunge. But it all came down to that, blocking out that time, knowing what makes sense, what is worth it for me, how much money I can put aside for it, and then just doing it. But when it was one big overwhelming task of, I just need to learn how to swim, I had never broken it down, and therefore it was never going to get done.
Nice, wicked. And that's interesting. There's a lot of things you said there that can easily, from my opinion, be applied to many different things. So that's interesting. And just the way you sort of talk there about the whole process of going, doing the research and the putting aside money and the time and the investment. That's really interesting. How you sort of like articulate that and get that across. So that's again something I want to talk more about. But before we go further into like that sort of main topic and area, what I tend to do on these podcasts, Rizwan, is to find out more in depth about yourself. So like, what brought yourself here today, and how did you, even arrive at this sort of mindset and this sort of level of thinking? But just before we do that, actually, I guess it's probably good to just mention that how we actually started working together, or even like, how I came across yourself. So I'll just put it out there. I've worked with many people since having my own business across the years. I worked with loads of people, and at the time I was looking for an admin assistant, somebody just to come on board, help out with some admin duties for my own business. And like I said, I've worked with many people, and especially with the way where online world is going, like freelancing, and I've always picked not only in person people to come and work with me, but I've taken the advantage of working with people online, and particularly online in foreign countries. And in these foreign countries, you don't always get the best, I'd say, quality of work. And so I think I found you. Was it on Upwork or?
No, it was literally just from Instagram.
Was it Instagram? Okay,
Literally.
so yeah, okay, so even Instagram in itself. So I think you popped up. I'm not even sure, to be honest, how I actually
So I'll
found you.
tell you how I found you.
Okay, go on.
You probably don't realize, but we have a process set in place of how we attract people who can become our customers. And what we'll do is we'll like their posts, we'll comment, etc., until you see who we are. And once you saw who I was and I was being active, then it became oh well, actually I might be able to use your services. But then you still never reached out until I DM'd you first to say, hey, my name's Riz. This is what we do. If you need anything, let me know. And then you would have messaged back, and then we built the relationship, and then that's how the custom happens. So it's all part of the actual process of how we actually get customers in the first place, is how you actually found me.
Right. So even to some level of degree there, you've got the knowledge and the application to put these strategies in place in terms of like marketing and gaining customers. And again, that's something we'll definitely talk about. So yeah, I mean, that's how I got in touch with you. That's a great thing, and that's the whole thing about social media and the world going towards more digitally and stuff. So yeah, that's really good thing to hear. So let's talk to me about yourself then. So who is Rizwan? Like, what was you like growing up, and how we arrived at this point today, man?
So I'm 30 years old. School, I was not the cool kid. Still not the cool kid, in my opinion. Just a person who just got average grades. Went to college, same thing. Just did just enough to basically get through and pass college the first year. So then I ended up flunking the second year because I thought it was easy for the first year. I didn't actually put in any work. So I ended up flunking the second year, and then putting in with tutoring, private mentoring, and getting my second year actually completed like 1 year later than everyone else. Wow. That kind of was a pivotal point for me. And the reason why is because I realized that if I pay someone and I actually put in the effort behind something, I can achieve what I need to achieve. So if you imagine, I got, in my second year of college, I got EEU or EUU or something as bad as that. And then just by putting in the time and effort with a private tutor, spending a crap ton of money for how much I was earning at that time, and then just putting in the work behind it, I ended up getting like B, B, C or something like that. But it just then it clicked to me that as long as I put in the effort, I can achieve something. And yes, it may need to be more effort than an average person. Like someone else may be able to mess about as much as me and then still get the results. But I realized I'm not like that. I need to put in the work. And that was kind of like, because of that pivotal moment, it kind of like transcended into everything moving forward. It never became an excuse for me that I'm just dumb, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. All the limiting beliefs of I'm just something were gone, because I realized that I just need to put in work. So then built through that, went into uni, got a 2-1 again, just putting in hard work, just spending hours and hours and hours behind what I needed to do to basically get things done. And then went in, but that along that whole journey, so even from school, I was always selling things. I was always selling like sweets, and I was selling this and I was selling that, and selling phones and SIM cards and all of this other kind of stuff. But the reality is that when I look back on it now, I was making no money. So I might have made on paper £5, but the amount of time and effort and resources and going back and forth and driving and all of that, I was actually making nothing. But what it was doing was building up the skills that I have today. Because if I hadn't gone through all of that to actually learn that, okay, here it's not worth it for me to do this, this, and that. Here I might be making money, but the amount of time and resource that is taking means it makes no sense. I'm working less than minimum wage. So what's the point of even doing it in the first place, etc. It then built me to the services that I do offer. It needs to be profitable. It needs to be where I can also use money for marketing or use money for this and use money for that, rather than it just being a one-to-one, oh, I'm making a $5, because that doesn't really do anything for you long-term. So built through that. From there, I was helping many businesses for free for about 4 years, where people would just call me who run businesses and say, hey, Riz, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? And I was just going to help them because I just had a passion for helping a business succeed. And then I realized in 2019, I was like, I need to monetize this, because now I'm getting called every single week. They're taking up my time. So I started monetizing it, started helping people on a small scale. And I realized that I'm an amateur in terms of how I'm helping them. I'm doing what they want me to do, rather than actually guiding them with what they should be doing instead of what they think they need to be doing. So I just started researching, started understanding, started actually moving some businesses in the right path, grew through that. And then I realized that actually all of these businesses who, let's say, for example, I spoke to you, Junaid, and I said, you need to do A, B, and C between this week and this week, because it's going to help you to grow. And it might take you 3 months to do it because you're a business owner, you don't have time. And so I was like, I need to solve that problem for them rather than actually expect them to be able to do it themselves. So there needs to be a package where they can do it themselves, but there also needs to be a package where I can just get it done for them. And that's where we started the virtual assistant side of things. And then most of my businesses needed websites, so they needed apps. And so I thought, rather than any of them outsourcing anything, why don't I build a team that can do it all for them? So rather than them saying that, yes, it's going to get done, and 2 years later, it's still not done, it becomes we can get it done for you, and within 3 months, it's done. So it's all about just saving that time, helping these businesses to actually grow, and realizing that it's not going to be me that ever holds them back from them being able to get their task done, basically. So that's kind of where we're at now. So right now we run that agency where we basically have those 4 main services, and we're building and we're growing, and I love it.
Nice. Wow. So, when you mentioned about second year of college, you realized you had to put the F in. How old was you at that time?
I think that's 17, 18.
Wow. So even that, it's pretty young in my eyes, and having the ability to know what you did and then turn it around and then reflect on that. Would you say you've then carried on that mentality and that sort of attitude towards everything you do since then?
100%.
Wow.
Because as long as you put in effort. And I feel the same thing for everyone. I know many people might think, like, some people might watch this and think, no, you don't understand, Rizwan. No matter how hard I work, it's not possible. But the reality is that if you put in enough work, it may take you 1,000 hours where it takes a normal person 10 hours. I get it. But if you put in enough work, you can gain the skills that you need.
Wow. So, I mean, if I'll probably say I've had some pivotal moments like that, but for me personally, along the way, you find yourself coming away from that realization, and then maybe starting to sort of fall back into habits of where you maybe not as, say, motivated or maybe energized to get some things done. Do you have any of those moments? Does it happen often or regularly occur for you?
To be honest, in terms of procrastination, that happens every week on different tasks, and it's all for different reasons all the time. But in terms of the ultimate goal and where I want to get to, because from when I've been I'm not even joking when I say this, it might sound cringy, I don't know, but from when I was 13 years old, I've always said to myself, I'm going to be a millionaire. From when I'm that young, because I was working at 13 years old, even though it was just for my pops and I was just helping him out and whatever. I just saw the graft and I started learning about the graft, and I just realized being a millionaire isn't about the money, but it's more about just winning something. Like the swimming for me, that's why one of my proudest moments is that I've wanted to do it for so long, I've finally done it. The same thing as when I do become a millionaire, it will be the same thing. I want to be a millionaire for so long, I will become it. And when I am it, it will be my proudest moment, not because of the money, but more because of I've achieved something that I really wanted to do. If that makes sense. But because that's the ultimate goal from day dot, is that it will never go down more than maybe a week of me not doing something before I'm back striving on it again, because I know where the ultimate thing is that I just really want to do for myself, really, not for anything else.
Yeah, yeah. So you say at 13, you had this goal of becoming a millionaire. How did that even come about?
I've just seen, like, when I think about all different people who have, quote unquote, a free life, a life where they don't have to worry. That yes, they still have to worry. At that age, I'm too naive to realize that they've still got problems, right? I'm too naive to realize that a lot of suicides actually happen from entrepreneurs. A lot of suicides actually happen from business owners who have made billions. But because I'm so naive at that point, I'm just looking around at people. I'm seeing this uncle working 9 to 5, this uncle working till 65 years old, my pops who's got a business and alhamdulillah is doing good. Other people who have got a business, alhamdulillah, they're doing good. Or maybe they're struggling, but they've still got the time where they want to go somewhere, they can literally just get up and leave. And yes, it might take a hit on them, just like it would take a hit on someone else, like in a job, but they don't have to ask someone. And it's just that element of freedom that you get with that. And because of that, in my head, it was like, okay, what's a number that I can attach to it? And don't get me wrong, like, let's say I'm 50 years old or 60 years old and then I hit a millionaire. It's not the same as being a millionaire when you were 13. And don't get me wrong as well, it's not the same as even monetarily wise, like with inflation and everything else, getting a million when I'm 60 is going to be way easier than getting a million when I was 13 because of how money changes. But it's just that thing that was just in my head from when I was 13, that I need to achieve something so that I have the freedom to do what I want. And then the byproduct of that is for my kids and everything else. But that came like maybe when I was like 15, 16, I was thinking about kids, not as in I want to have one now, but more about the fact that when I do have a kid, I don't want to ever have to tell them no. And when I hear stories like Lewis Hamilton, do you know Lewis Hamilton's story?
No, I've not heard it.
So Lewis Hamilton's story, just to give a quick overview, is that he wouldn't be where he is today if his dad didn't put in so many hours working like 3 jobs, went through a divorce and everything just to basically put money towards this go-karting lifestyle, because it's a very expensive sport to be part of. And then he got to where he got to. And I don't want to ever be that person where I have to sacrifice my marriage, or I have to sacrifice and do 3 jobs a day, or do any of these other different things just so that my daughter can have what she wants. I want to be able to say, cool, you want to go into this and it's a bit expensive? No problem. I want that freedom to be able to do that. And yes, she may never, ever need to do that. And yes, God provides. But I don't want the excuse to be me. I don't want the regret to be me later on down. I want it to be where I've put in all the effort. If it didn't come to me, that's fine. But I can live with that. What I can't live with is regret.
Why is that so important to you, to live without regret?
Because I just feel like we've only got one life to live. Like, it might sound cringy, I don't know, but at the same time, like, I only have one life to live. So because I only have that one life to live, I want to make use of every single minute that I possibly can. And yes, sometimes it's to my detriment, that because I time block, etc. Sometimes it's to my detriment that someone that I really care about might ring me and say, I want to do A, B, and C. And the people in my life know that they need to book with me like 1 week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. I can't just drop everything on a dime. But then that same level of respect comes back, where if they do 9 times out of 10, if we say we've got something to do, and then someone else calls me and says, I need to do A, B, or C, I'm not letting their plans go for someone else either. So it works both in that sense.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. That to me just sounds like a complete different level of, thinking and life. Like I said, like the point of doing this episode was diving into the whole organizing and scheduling and stuff. And that's, like I said, you just said it there. It sounds really good it sounds quite refreshing for me to hear that. Maybe myself, not really around many people who are like yourself, which is another thing when I want to talk on now is, I know you mentioned your dad's got a business, so was that the main influence you sort of saw there, or was it any sort of peers or friends that you grew up with that had that same attitude as you, or did you find that?
So when I was super young, it was mainly my pops, mainly my dad. When I got to maybe about 16, so I remember year 11 or college, maybe year 11 or maybe college first year or second year, I came across Eric Thomas. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
So when I heard of him, and then I started going through all these videos, I remember talking to one of my boys and saying, yo, have you seen this? But they just weren't interested in it. And for me, it was like, how could you not be interested in this? So I just used to just go up video after video after video, and just realize everything he was saying was cementing what I thought when I was 13, which is if I work hard, I will get what I need to get to. And seeing his story was like, that was the first book I ever read, was his book, because I was just like, if he could go from zero, homeless, and everything else that he went through, to then take 12 years to get a GED and now be where he is today, if he can do it, I can do it. And I guess this, how you're trying to ask me, like, what was it that really like changed things for me, is like, I know how my brain works now. Back then I didn't know, so it's indirect, but I know how my brain works now, which is that even when it came to swimming, the first question I asked my swimming instructor is, what's the longest it's taken for someone to learn with you and with him specifically? And it was a 65-year-old who took 9 months. And after 4 months, the guy still couldn't let go of his float, like at all. Like he couldn't even walk in the pool without holding the float, like he was too scared. And so I realized, like, after just the taster session, I could do more than what that guy could do in 4 months. So I was like, it's a no-brainer. It's going to happen for me way sooner than that. So let me just trust the process and carry on. So it just became a mentality for everything now that I do that. I just need to see someone else who's come from a worse position than me that has done it. So I can literally just see the same thing and say, well, he was in a worse position than me and he has done it and he followed these steps. I just need to trust the process, go through each of the steps, keep building, keep growing, pay people if I need to pay them to learn. And then I'll also get to that process in the same way.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, what is it about, like, the people, like, let's say your friend then, what is it about people like himself, and there's many people like that who do think that who don't really think much of these, you know, these videos that are coming through on YouTube and talking about putting in effort? What is it about those sort of people, especially if you're around them in college? I mean, that's sort of the culture in college, isn't it? It's like relaxed. When you're a student, you don't really take your studies too seriously. Some people do, some people don't, but generally as a whole, it is quite a pretty relaxed environment. So what is the difference between those people and yourself, and what do you think that brings you out? Like, how did you get that to that sort of level compared to like most of your peers? And
I think I just want it, but I think it's difficult. I think, like, because every single person grows up differently from their own circumstances. Like, I'm an avid believer that I'll give you a weird example, right? There'll be one person who will see you in a wedding, and you know how we have our Asian, like, quite big weddings, right?
Yeah.
There'll be one person where you haven't met that person for ages. They will come and they will chat to you for an hour. You'll love that relationship, and then you'll go your own ways, and you won't see them again till the next wedding, and there'll be no love lost, right? There'll be another person who you will see, will come, you'll chat to them for an hour, or you'll maybe chat to them for 10 minutes, and that person will go away and say, this person never gives me the time of day. We only see them at weddings and they talk bad. Because each of them have grown up through different circumstances. One of them may have seen that kind of thing and thought that it's normal. One of them may have seen that kind of thing and thought that it's not normal for them to be however they are, and everyone's grown up different, right? So I don't have no magic understanding as to why exactly I'm how I am now, but I feel that because of how I grew up, and because of me seeing my father be able to do what he wants when he wants, because of seeing other people who aren't in business not be able to do it, seeing, like, one of my friends, his father's quite wealthy, and his son was able to do whatever he wanted because his father is quite wealthy. Again, it just reinforced that. And that I didn't see until I was like, 11. So it's just these little things that just tick into your mind. My memory isn't the best, but just these little things that just stick in your mind. They kind of formed me to be like, the only way is business. And when I think as well in terms of income and lifestyle, if you're in a vehicle, let's say you're working a job and you're on 30K a year or 40K a year, whatever it might be. And when you're on that salary, there's no hope that the next month they're randomly going to pay you £500 more or £1,000 more.
Yeah.
There's no hope of that. And because there's no hope of that, you can at times sometimes feel like you're in prison, because you might feel like, well, this is all I have to live with until my next yearly increase, or I can go for another job. But going for that other job sometimes is applying for another job is sometimes like having a second job in itself. And so with business, there's also the side of things where every month you never know how much money you could earn. Yes, don't get me wrong, it could become flatline and it could become zero, but it's part of the game and part of the fun, for me anyway, of, yes, it could be zero, but I'm not the person who wants anything to ever be average or ever be zero. And so I'm going to work my butt off, and who knows, it could be here or it could be here. I just need to make sure that the lows are never too low.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, that's an important thing, and especially for new businesses starting off. You have all these hopes and dreams that it's going to become maybe a massive success, but it's really a couple of months or a year into, you think actually there's a lot more work that needs to go on behind it. So would you say, so to me, it sounds like you had all these skills of the right attitude to reach that level of success. So what skills have you sort of learned along the way then? If we're talking about like people skills, marketing skills, sales, etc. What have been your sort of big learning sort of steps in this process over the last couple of years?
so number one thing is don't be scared to spend money to learn, because if you're willing to spend money to learn and actually engross it. So I used to be that person who I used to spend every single time I saw a good offer online, I would purchase it and maybe do one lesson out of the entire course and then not even continue, because I'd find something else which was shiny, and then I'd find something else which was shiny, and then I end up with a whole backlog of things that I won't even remember what the first thing is that I bought, and then wouldn't actually get anything done. So now instead, don't get me wrong, I still do buy things. If they're a really good offer, I will buy it, but it goes in my archives immediately. It becomes I will get to this after I've completed this main thing. Whatever it is I am going through, that's my thing that I'm going through until it's complete. And that doesn't mean I can't read books or listen to books along the way, which are separate to that course. But it just means that the time that I'm going to be sitting down, writing things or strategizing or whatever based on a course, I'm going through that from start to finish. So my number one learning, I'd say, in the last 2 years, and what's really helped me to like completely level up, is just spending that money, not feeling, obviously that money has to make sense to spend that specific money, but spending that money in a specific area, which is going to help me to grow, because that's what I specifically need at that specific time, rather than just, I'm just going to willy-nilly just buy this and buy this and buy this and get nowhere, basically. Just do 1% of everything, which means I'm basically still nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much guilty of that too, to be honest. It's sort of like, it is that sort of shiny sort of toy syndrome, isn't it? You think like you might be going through some, whatever it is you're going through, and you see something that's very attractive and you make that more of an impulsive buy. What would you say? Or
it is,
at the time
you feel like it's never going to be there available ever again, and so you purchase it. But the reality is like, I used to be part of network marketing as well at one point, when I was in university, and that's where I learned a lot of skills as well. So even though, yes, I wasn't quote unquote successful through the network marketing company that I was a part of, the public speaking skills, the communication skills, and all of that all came from me being in that stint for like 3 years. Where I was literally obviously I was still working a job, I was still doing university, etc. But that was the side thing that really helped me to realize that people were going from nothing to something. So I was just putting in work behind it, and I was just gaining those skills. And even from that, you realize very, very early on that it's only the ones that are willing to put in the work that will potentially achieve the results.
Wicked. Yeah, that's amazing, man. What is it you studied at university?
International business and globalization. But I'll be honest with you, I learned nothing. The only thing I learned from that course, I mean, that degree, was basically that if I had a 4,000 word essay, I could do it in one night with enough Red Bulls and enough tea. I could do it. But that's the only thing I learned, that like, if there's a deadline, I can accomplish things. But I guess that's something that I also took into like after uni, because like now I set deadlines for myself as if I'm in uni. If that makes sense.
Right.
So to be fair, this might actually help people as well, is the sense that right now, when you're outside of uni and when you're working your job and whatever, and you have a deadline, most people will set that deadline. And if, let's say, for example, you can't get it done by that time, you'll just be like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow morning. But when you're in uni, you don't defer a deadline. Well, most people don't, right? So if you can't defer a deadline in uni, what do? You stay up all night and make sure no matter what happens, you get it done. Sometimes that same thing has to be the case for your work, as in your business. You have to be your boss, but you have to be the boss that you never wanted, if that makes sense. Like sometimes you have to be that boss that you never wanted and actually tell yourself, I'm sorry, you can't take annual leave right now. I'm sorry, you have to get this done right now because your customer needs it, and you've given your word to your customer, and your word needs to mean something in your business. Otherwise you won't have a business.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Like, let's talk a little bit more on that deadlines. I mean, why do we find that as time goes on, like when we leave this sort of student life behind and the university days, what is it about people like committing to themselves, or is it a case of not taking themselves too serious? I mean, besides people that do run a business, like I'm talking about people working jobs and stuff, still can be quite highly successful, but maybe in other areas they may not be, let's say health and fitness, maybe not take themselves as serious or give themselves a deadline. Have you had experience in that, like besides talking to people who don't run businesses and stuff? Do they find it difficult in that area to do?
So everyone I've ever spoken to, and I hope none of them are listening, but everyone I've ever spoken to who doesn't run a business, who's wanted to get into shape, or has wanted, like, let's say that they're overweight and they wanted to lose weight and they want to do it, unless they pay someone, I've never seen them be able to achieve it by themselves, because they don't have the accountability. And because they're not used to having to hit deadlines in business or having a customer hold them accountable or whatever, they find it very, very difficult to hold themselves accountable, because it's just them going to the gym. So they either need a friend who's going to go with them to the gym every single time with them. But the reality is that that one friend cancels on them one time, and then all of a sudden it goes downhill. Or alternatively, it becomes cool, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go 3 times a week this week, and then next week you're not going to get it in, and then it takes them a month or 2 months just to get back into it again. So a lot of them are scared to pay, or maybe they can't afford it. But the reality is that they don't. One thing that I'm a very big believer on is that you don't have to do what the PT says in terms of how many sessions you have to have, if that makes sense. You don't. If all you can afford is 1 session a week, just do 1 session a week. It's better than nothing. And if your PT don't do that, you can find a PT that will do that, if that makes sense. But if you start with just something small and just stay active, then you will get your nutrition right. Then you will get everything else right. But because they count these tasks as so big, getting into shape, they never get to where they want to get to. But that's I'm not an expert in any sense of the word in terms of fitness. That's your area. But it's just my experience from people who are not in a business in terms of achieving deadlines, because they don't have it outside of what they do in their job, and therefore they don't do it.
No, you're right. I think that's important. And the fact that you said there, just do 1 session a week, like keep active and let that sort of transcend and spiral into other areas of their life. So I totally agree with that. I totally agree. I'm just about to say something then. So in terms of, you mentioned there about people see these things as massive tasks, when in reality, just doing something a little bit is going to kickstart something. Like, what do you think is responsible for that? Why do we maybe see things and interpret things as massive tasks all the time?
So there's this thing there's 2 things. So one is confused people do nothing, is something that I really believe in. Is that if someone is confused about anything, then they're not going to get up and try and do it, because they don't know where to start. Because they don't know where to start, it's all of a sudden an overwhelming task. Even if that starting bit is literally just watching a YouTube video to understand, they haven't comprehended that yet. They haven't thought that's a step. They're just looking at the entire big picture of, I need to start. So sometimes the first thing that someone should do is literally just write down, I need to get into fitness, in like bubble it, do a spider diagram. What are all the different tasks? Okay, let's just number them. What order should I do these in? And even if they just did that, which would take them probably 5 to 10 minutes at most, and yes, they won't have everything on that paper, but it doesn't matter. All they've got is a bunch of tasks. And from them bunch of tasks, they might choose one as a number 1. And then they could even, if they wanted to, put that number 1 into its own bubble and see, okay, to do number 1, what do I need to do? So it could be, let's go with the YouTube example, like just watching one video on YouTube. If number 1 was watch a video on YouTube on fitness, it could be, what parts of fitness do I want to learn? Okay, these are all the different ones. And then they could even break it down a little bit further if they wanted to. But the reality is, it just takes that one bit of starting. And because procrastination is mainly you not knowing where to start, it becomes such an overwhelming task that they never do start. And that's why when they have a PT and they have someone who's telling them, come to the gym at this time, they know that the task is to get to the gym. That's why they, because they now know what the task is. The PT isn't telling them become fit at 10 a.m. The PT is telling them get to the gym at 10 a.m. So it's just a mindset shift. And then the second one part of that is that I truly believe as well, like until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change, you will never change. I'm not sure if have you had that before, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, massively, yeah.
Yeah, so if they don't know that it's painful, so even coming back to the swimming, I knew how painful it was that last time that I went on holiday, that I had to, no matter what, make a change. So even with these people in fitness and with these people outside, like people who are working 9 to 5, etc., who don't have a PT, yes, they can do it. But just the people that I've been privy to have a conversation with, the pain isn't big enough yet. They haven't had to go to the doctors and be told that you need to get into shape. They haven't had a heart attack. They haven't, etc., etc., etc. And because they haven't had these things, the pain isn't great enough for them to say, no matter what, I'm going to the gym now, even without. And for some reason, they don't. For some people, that pain is mental, that they don't need the doctor to come to them, and then they will actually go without a PT, etc., which is fine. But for most people, unfortunately, the pain needs to be greater extrinsically rather than just intrinsically.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. And for those that, I mean, there are people that, what do you say to people that are just blind to the pain, or maybe ignorant to the pain? They just take pain after pain, but they don't move or anything. Have you come across people like that?
Yeah, so it's because that pain isn't big enough for them yet. So
Yeah.
there's this story about a dog on a nail, and a dog was sitting on a nail, whimpering, moaning. So the neighbor came out the house, went to the next door neighbor who owns the dog, and said, "What's happening with the dog? Like, what's actually happening? Like, why is he moaning for like 12 hours of the day?" They go over, they go check out the dog, and the dog's sitting on a nail, but that nail isn't hurting him enough to stand up, but it's hurting him enough to moan. It's the same as people, right? Like that pain is coming, and we're taking that pain, we're taking those punches, but it's not enough for us to just get up, stand up, and go do something else rather than taking that punch. So it's until that pain is big enough, that's when people will move.
Nice. That's it. And I get that as well, because I mean, even having conversations with people that come to our gym and, you know, talk about you know, about joining and discussing what their problems are, there will always be a handful of people that won't move, or just like will join. Actually, people will join, but then later may realize for whatever reasons they're not maybe getting the results that they want, and so therefore they tend to just back off. If you've seen people like start some things and then just get thrown off by whatever, might be something very small, and then they sort of relapse and then go back to where they were. Have you even found yourself doing that at times? Or
so the prime example that comes in my head is people who are getting ready for a wedding.
Yeah.
There's a hell of a lot of people who will go to the gym 3 months before wedding or 6 months before wedding, and they will get into the best shape of their life for that wedding. But again, it comes back to that sentence that I just said, which is until the pain is great, right? Yeah. So that pain of them not looking good on their wedding is big. And that's why they will work hard until their wedding. And then they don't have something after their wedding to keep them in check, because the whole point of them doing it was for that. And therefore they then relapse back to it. So like with myself, I've consciously stopped going to the gym because I don't enjoy it as much as playing sports. But I'll still go to the gym once a week, just because having the muscles to actually to move better, to stand your ground in sports, etc., 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 is all very important still as well. But I don't go gym anymore because I enjoy it. I only go because it's going to help the thing that I do enjoy, which is the sport. But it took someone pushing me during playing to realize, I can't let this happen again. So again, it took that pain for me to then go to the gym once a week. That makes sense. So it always comes back to that. How big is that pain for that particular thing? And if that pain isn't big enough, then it's never going to happen. So sometimes it could even be that you indirectly motivate. So sometimes I indirectly motivate the people who I'm business coaching with understanding what is the long-term pain that they're going to get if they don't compound these exercises from now. So you can be sitting down with a client who's getting ready for their wedding and wants to look really good. We could also put it in their mind from now that how are you going to feel 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when you're going back to this point, and it's harder for you to get back to where you wanted to be rather than just keeping consistent along the journey for these 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long you want to actually stay fit and stay active. So it all comes down just to that pain. And sometimes that pain doesn't have to be literal, it can be mental for long term. Like you can just think about in the future what pain you are going to get and instead just work hard for it.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely. No, that's amazing stuff right now, man. Nice. Let's go moving on to I want to talk more about in depth about, obviously we were around at this point now. You've gone through setting up your own business, an agency, where you help businesses. Obviously that in itself takes a lot of planning and scheduling and organization, but the fact that you also say you do stuff on the outside, the swimming, the sports, you've got a small family as well. What's your take on balance and with all these things? Because that's sort of a word that I've heard a lot of, a topic that's come up a lot in the past few years in my world, having a business, having a small family of myself, and just trying to manage everything. Do you believe, and again, I've watched stuff on YouTube where people are against balance and it's more about, your decisions and whatnot. So where you choose to spend your time. What's your take on balance and how do you balance things?
So I don't believe there's any such thing as balance, as in equal balance. Right. There can be balance, but no, not equal balance. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, for example, the only two things that matter in your life is your family and your work. Yeah. If that's the case, you'd need to, and you really want it to be fair and balanced, you'd look at how many hours am I working versus how much time am I with my family. When you grow up in this day and age where we're trying to achieve a little bit more financially, we can still achieve our relationships and still grow our relationships, not just with our family, but also with friends, etc., 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 without having to put in as much time as what we do in our job. And that's the reason why people work 40 hours a week, for example, but then they don't spend 40 hours with their family. They might do an 8-hour shift at work, spend some time by themselves, because that's also just as important, and then spend 2 hours with their family. But as long as that 2 hours is an actual good 2 hours where you're not just sitting on your phone, you're there with your actual family, that 2 hours could be enough. Yeah. There's someone called Grant Cardone, who I'm almost certain you probably heard of. Yeah. He says something, I don't completely agree with everything that he says, but one of the things that he mentioned, which I thought, let me try it out, let me test it out, let me see how it is with my family. And he said, if you spend 1 hour a day with your daughter, one proper hour a day with your daughter, that's all they really need you to spend with them. And so I thought, let me try it. So on Saturday and Sunday, I have my daughter in the morning. So me and my missus, we kind of share the time around so that we're not both always there and we're not both always away, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I spent the first 2 hours of when I'm with her, literally just chilling with her, spending entire time just honed into exactly what she wanted to do and just playing with her. After 1 and a bit hours, she didn't want to carry on playing anything. She just wanted to sit down with herself or just color with her crayons, or just play a little game by herself or whatever. She doesn't need someone in her face the entire 2 hours. And I'm saying this just to try and frame and help understand, obviously every kid is different, but you don't need to be with your family for 40 hours, just like you need to be at your job for 40 hours. Then the same thing comes to spirituality. You don't need to spend 40 hours. For example, I'm a Muslim. You don't need to spend 40 hours in the mosque.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend 40 hours in the gym for your health. So in terms of equal balance, I don't believe it's necessary at all. In terms of finding time for all 4 aspects of life, so health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality, I believe that is important. And so the way to do it, the way I do it personally, is I time block. So in the morning, I've got my certain time just to get ready. Then I've got a bunch of time to do my work. And then from 6 p.m. onwards, generally, on a day-to-day basis, I'm with my family. Apart from, for example, a Tuesday when I'm at basketball, a Friday when I'm with my boys, it's quite laid out where it's not equal, but it's fair for everyone. It makes sense, and there's time for everyone rather than just working 24/7. Because we all know, in business, there's you can have 10 tasks today, but those 10 tasks, before you finish those 10 tasks, there's another 15 tasks in between that you need to start getting done, and the tasks are never gonna finish. And when I realized the tasks are never ending, I realized that I have to make time for everything else, because otherwise my entire year, I'm just going to be sat behind a computer or doing stuff for work, but that's not going to give me happiness.
Right.
So I had to find like the balance for myself. And I believe everyone's balance is different. But that's how I found it for me, is that having a set time, and is kind of good in the sense where when I first got with my missus, like she was very against like me doing anything which was overnight. So we all know like working overnight, you end up getting paid more, maybe like £1-2 extra an hour or whatever. But she was very against like me working overnight, because she was like, I don't want to be passing ships in the night, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
I want me working in the day and you working in the night and we hardly see each other. I don't want that kind of lifestyle. And at that time, I didn't see it. All I was thinking about was, well, it's more money. So I didn't do it because I just wanted to honor what she wanted. But I'm so grateful for that now, because I've just been now just making sure that whatever I do need to do, I get it done within the time that I've got allotted for myself to get it done. And if it means I need to now work smarter within that time, that's good, because it means it's going to force me that I'm backed into a corner to learn how to work smarter, rather than thinking time is unlimited for work and then actually just spending 24 hours on it. So it's a blessing in disguise. And I think it's really important to find that best balance for you, but it all starts from you actually starting to put pen to paper and seeing, where am I spending this? Where am I spending this time, etc., rather than just winging every day.
Yeah. It's a common thing, isn't it? And like you said, I think when you do arrive at that point where you realize, like for me personally, it has been the last since I guess COVID, having the business shut down. It does give you time to like, it gives you a lot of time during COVID to think, actually, okay, the business is closed now. What do I do with my time now? Like, I've got all this free time. Yes, I can carry on figuring out a way how to pivot around the business and stuff. But for me, that personally gave me a lot of time to reflect on where am I spending my time. I've got young kids. I want to spend more time with them. And how does this now affect the business and, you know, my social and everything? So you're totally right how one thing does have a knock-on effect on everything else where you spend your time on. And I think it's important that, you know, people do come to terms with having some sort of schedule like yourself, blocking time out. Do you get really like what's the best process for that? Do you find like you get really overwhelmed doing that? Can people, I guess people would tend to think like maybe just the thought of like, okay, I'm going to block out time and put these things in place. For some people, like I've chatted to clients and things and said like they don't often tend to schedule much. They sort of like tend to wing it, but without really realizing the actual gain, the long-term gain of it and the benefit of that. Is there a simple way of doing that, or is it people tend to get overwhelmed and overcomplicate things?
So someone DM me the other day just to say like, why do you still do this? Like, why do you still track your time? And I was like, I've seen the benefit of doing it, and so I can't stop.
Right.
Like if I ever stop, like even for 1 week, and I look back at how much work did I actually get done, it's maybe 50% less work, because I haven't actually tracked my time and I haven't actually time blocked. And the whole reason why I started doing it on social media is because it just held me accountable. So at the beginning, I had to just put out whatever I think I'm going to do in the day. Then the next day, I would basically say whether I got it done or I didn't get it done. And then that forced me to now get 90% of it done. But now I'm at a stage where I don't need to say what I have done and I haven't done, because I was never doing it for social media anyway. I was always just doing it to hold me accountable without having to pay someone. Because I feel like me paying someone to literally me send them my calendar and then tell them if I got it done or not, I was like, well, what are they going to tell me? I already know that I haven't done it. That's why I've put an X. Are they going to tell me, okay, do it tomorrow? No. Like, even if they say that, I already know, cool, I need to do it tomorrow. So I was just like, how can I just hold myself accountable without having to pay someone to literally just check my calendar? I'm just going to force myself to do it. So I did that. And then now I'm at a point now where I use Google Calendar, and within Google Calendar, I will, any day that you see that, because I still post it on social media every day, right? So any day that I post, it doesn't end up ever being the exact same. So throughout the day, if things slightly tweak, I just change it around slightly here and there. Then the next day I start again from scratch and do it again. But the whole point, the reason why it makes it easy is because I'm not holding myself to have to do everything in the exact order, in the exact times as that. Because if that was the case, I'd feel like a robot.
Of course, of course.
I need that 5 minute, 15-minute leeway here and there. I need to eat lunch if I'm a little bit hungry early. I need to be able to eat lunch early. If I'm hungry a little bit later, then I need to eat lunch later. If I need to move things around slightly, it's fine. I'm a human being. I can do that. But by setting out the plan in the first place, it helps me to realize, am I getting 90% of what's on that list done today? And if I'm getting 100% of what's on that list done every single day, it means I'm most likely not even stretching myself. So I don't ever want it to be where it's just perfect every single day, because it means I'm not stretching myself anyway in the first place. Wow. But to answer your question in terms of how easy is it, it's only easy if you don't think I need to plan my whole week or I need to plan my whole day tomorrow. Just start by just saying, I'm just going to plan tomorrow half a day. And that half a day could literally be you waking up at 7 a.m., doing getting ready for half an hour, and then starting work from 7 and finish, and then at 12, you're going to finish at 3, but you just put it till 12, and then that's it. That's your half a day done. The next day, you say, I'm just going to plan for 6 hours. The next day, I'm just going to plan for 8 hours. Before you know it, you're planning for the whole day. And then before you know it, you're planning for the whole week. And then before you know it, like anyone who asks you for anything in the future, you're like, oh, let me check my calendar to see if I'm actually free, rather than, which is something that I also used to hate, is because I care so much about my word meaning something, is, for example, you asking me, can you do A, B, or C, Riz? And me saying, yeah, me not making a note of it anywhere or putting it in my notes, never looking back at my notes, and someone else saying to me, can you do this on this day? And me saying yeah to them. And then all of a sudden on the day, I'm like, I'm so sorry, I forgot to put it in my calendar. Or I forgot to make a note, or you should have reminded me. But it's not your job to remind me. It's my job to keep my word. And so it just comes down to just starting. Just go on Google Calendar, block out a little bit of time. And if you need help with doing it, obviously just message me and I can help you. That's not a problem. But if you don't want to start from Google Calendar like an actual tool, you can start from literally just your notes. So I used to start with just my notes saying 8 to 9 doing this. And the reason why I switch between Google Calendar and just my notes from time to time is because your brain gets bored. And because your brain gets bored, you need to switch it up every now and again. The same as procrastinating, the same as absolutely everything, the same as the gym, when you're doing exercises and everything else, your brain gets bored. So you got to just switch it up, like maybe every 3 months, maybe every 6 months, but everyone's different.
Yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from. And just like you said, just starting off with that half a day, getting in some simple tasks. I think that's where people should start. It's like it all comes down to, like you said, just breaking things down, the process, small bits, and then let it compound over time. So it's really interesting that you do that. Why do you think that, as you said something there, I just thought of a question. Why do you think we need to change things up so often? Do you think having the world that we live in today has had a massive impact on that, on our attention span, and having that ability to mix things up? Do you think too much mixing up of things is sort of detrimental to our progress?
Too much mixing up could be detrimental, but for me, it's like, I think it could be social media, it could be constantly scrolling, it could be the amount of distractions that we have at hand, it could be so many different things. But for me, it's like, because I want to grow, and because I see so many other people doing so many different things, and naturally your brain is going to think, well, this person did it in 5 months, why can't I do it in 6 months? Or this person did it in 5 months, why can't I do it in 4 months? Or this person did it in 5 months, why is it taking me 5 years? Right? And all of those different things come into your head. So you end up like, you might put down a task for 5 minutes, but because you got distracted by something, it's now taking you an hour to do that one task. So because of all these distractions, and our attention span is like, they used to say attention span is less than a goldfish. I swear our attention span is probably less than that. Right? But because of that fact and the amount of distractions that we have, I think that's why it's so important to time block, because otherwise, how many times have we scrolled on social media, and before we know it, it's been an hour? Forget it's been, we used to say, before you know it's been 15 minutes. Before you know it's been an hour that we've just been scrolling, and we can't even put the phone down. Like we're actively watching it saying, I want to put the phone down, and we don't put the phone down. Right? It's happened to me before. I'm sure it's happened to you as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, it's because of those, that's why it's so important, in my opinion, like to to time block and to do all those things because of how many distractions we actually have, because we're just robbing it from ourselves.
Yeah. And like you said there, like something interesting you said was giving your word. Like, why is that important to you? Like, yes, you know, you sort of said earlier, you don't like letting people down and stuff, and it's not their job to remind you, but why is giving people your word like so important? Like, what does that mean to you?
From when I've been young, I don't know why, but I've always been that annoying friend or that annoying person where
Yeah.
if you give me your word and you don't keep it, I get annoyed. I've always been that person. And because I've always been that person where if you give me your word and you don't keep it, I get annoyed, I've become that person where I now have to keep my word, because if I don't keep my word, I'm being a hypocrite. And I know everyone in the world is a hypocrite in some sense of the word, but that's not something I'm willing to be a hypocrite on. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And trust me, some of my friends hate it, but it's just me. It is, and it's not something that I'm willing to change, because I just feel like it's important. It's important that if your word doesn't, in my head, the way my brain works is that if your word don't mean anything, then it means that anything that you say, it doesn't mean that I need to believe it. So let's say, for example, Junaid, you tell me you want to do this at this time or whatever, and then you're always 2 hours late. From then on, me personally, the way my brain works is that I'm not even going to try and be on time for you anymore. I'm just always going to be ready 2 hours late. And then the one time that you are on time and that you decide to, like, you either get annoyed or you needed to be somewhere or whatever, I'm not going to care at all, because in my head, it's like, you've been 2 hours late all the time. So my time when you're going to be there is 2 hours late. And so I'm getting ready for that time. But that again comes down to, because I want to utilize every minute of my day at all times, I don't want to waste 2 hours waiting for you to get ready.
Of course,
and something that happens with me, which is also probably weird, is that, let's say, for example, we're going to go somewhere at 9 a.m. and instead you're already at 10 a.m. Like, let's say you tell me on the day and we end up going at 10 a.m. Then what happens in my head is that for that 1 hour, I don't end up doing any work. Because my brain has now been like, well, from this time I wasn't meant to be doing any work. So now I end up wasting time on social media, or I end up watching TV, or I end up, because my brain can't just switch to work. Like, I need to know I'm going to do work before I do work.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right. It's weird, but it's like, it's just how my brain works. And because I know how my brain works, I need everything around me to work so that my brain works.
Right. No, I totally agree with that, because this actually just happened to me like in the last couple of weeks. I'm thinking, spending, like, as I mentioned to you just before recording the podcast, starting it, I said things have sort of slowed down in the previous months, but we're starting to pick things up again, because I've realized, like, okay, if I'm going to spend X amount of time at work, I can't just, for me personally, I can't just dip into work for an hour or two. I need like a lot of time to like sit down and then prepare for those individual in between tasks that come in on top of on that one task that I was going to do. So for me, it's having that realization the last couple of weeks is actually, you know what, I need quite a lot of time to focus on this specific task, because I know there's just going to be a backlog of other things coming after that, you know, after you get started. So it's very important, man. But yeah, thanks for that. We're gonna sort of, I know you sort of pressed on time, so we're just gonna sort of round it off in a second. But anything else you can sort of advise to people, like when it comes to like planning and going after their goals, and anything that you've, you know, sort of want to touch on?
So yeah, one thing, which is what the number one question is after people start time blocking, is they say, well, I set a task for 1 hour and it's taken me 2 hours to do it. What do I do? So there's a step before that, which is, if you feel, is your battery okay?
I think it's gonna, sorry, let me just switch over to the FaceTime. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So one of the main questions that I get is, cool, something was meant to take 1 hour, but it took 2 hours. So what do I do now? So you one step back which is understanding that if you think a task is going to take 1 hour, you don't put 1 hour, you put 1.5 hours. That's to start with.
Right.
If you think a task is going to take half an hour, you put 1 hour. If you think a task is going to take 15 minutes, you put half an hour. If you think a task is going to take 5 minutes, you put 15 minutes. There always needs to be buffer time, because we think we're going to get it done so quickly, but there's the time setting it up. There's the time to get water. There's the time to go to the toilet quickly. There's the time that someone randomly rings you and you need to have a quick conversation to just say, call me back later.
Yeah.
All of these different things that we don't take into account into our day. So the first thing is just making sure there's extra time to whatever we think it's going to take. And then the second thing is, let's say, for example, you thought it was going to take half an hour and it's going to actually take 2 hours. Like while you're halfway through the task, you're realizing that. So you get to the 1 hour and you'd stop, and then you'd reschedule another 1 hour for the next available time that you can do. And it could be that in that same day, you've got time that you've blocked out for other things, but you feel like this is more important than one of those tasks that you've got in the day. All you do is you move that task that you've got in that day to the next day, and then you put in a second 1 hour slot later on down the day. But if you don't do that, what happens is you end up spending 2 hours on that without looking at your calendar. And before you know it, everything else is pushed back. And instead of finishing at 6 p.m., you're finishing at 8 p.m., you're finishing at 10 p.m.
Right.
Or you're finishing this many tasks, you're finishing just one task, but that has put you in a deficit for every other task that you need to get done in terms of when that deadline is due. So then you're overly stressed, and then you go into procrastination, not because your timeline isn't set up, but more because you're overwhelmed and you're thinking, how the hell do I get anything done? That's kind of like my number one tip. And the second tip is get help if you need help. So like the only way to increase your 24 hours, in my opinion, is to either have a tool or to pay someone. Pay someone at £10 per hour or whatever the minimum wage is for that person's age, and get someone to do things for you that you could do yourself, but you don't have the time to do it. And you only need to start paying people once your timeline is full, but you'll only know if your timeline is full if you start putting things on your calendar. If you don't put things on your calendar, you'll always think you've got enough time until it's too late. So that's kind of my main two things I would say.
No, two crucial tips there, because like you said yourself, I think you're right, having that buffer time is so crucial to getting these tasks done, because I've done it myself before. I've started something and then family calls, or my belly starts rumbling, I'm getting hungry, or I've got to train, and even just training downstairs in the gym. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to train at this time, but then I've got to put the lights on, set the music up, get the equipment ready, write down what I'm doing, program. So yeah, there's additional time that needs to be considered. And you're right, like as soon as we start to like overplay and it creeps into like that extended time that we had planned, it does become overwhelming. And then, like as always, most of us, we just stay up later or complete it later. That takes away time from the other things that you were going to do. So yeah, you're totally right, man. I get that. The second type, just to recap, what did you say on that second tip?
Is hiring either a tool
Hiring people
or person.
Yeah. So what about for people that are, I'd say, not in a business position? Like I say, to be honest, I'll answer that myself. So give you a prime example for me, like at home, wife's at home with the kids, and her big task, her duties is getting the cleaning done, the food and all the preparation. And I've recently sent in a cleaner to help out. And it's just that even it's not a massive thing, but it's also not a small thing either. And that's just her giving her more time to focus on herself, do things for herself. What other ways do you think people can go about hiring people? Or
so that's the main one I'd say, is in cleaning, in the gardening, in all of these different things that you think, no, that's something that I want to do, like washing the car, etc. Yes, it can be worth it for you to just do it yourself, but it depends on what you're sacrificing. So the question needs to be, is that £10 that I'm paying that cleaner per hour to do, let's say the cleaner needs to spend 2 hours, right? Is £20 worth more than me spending 2 hours with my child if I'm not going to get the chance to spend time with her? Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm going to get the time to spend with her later anyway, then it's not that deep. You clean 2 hours, and then you still spend time with your family. But it becomes if I'm not going to be able to do A, B, and C, is this £20 worth it? Like for me, if it's going to take me 4 hours to do the garden, it's not worth it for me, because at 4 hours I could spend the same amount of time only if I'm going to actually do the work in my business. And if I'm spending that time in that business, I'm going to earn way more than that £40. Does that make sense? So it just depends on
absolutely.
What makes sense. But don't get me wrong, there's people who kid themselves, and I used to do this myself as well, which is say, oh yeah, I'm gonna pay the gardener because my 40, like that £40, I'd rather pay them than spend 4 hours because I can earn more when I'm doing my job. And then I'd spend 4 hours watching Netflix. It's like, no, actually, I should have just done that. Sometimes maybe you need that time for Netflix. Like maybe you need that time to wind down. So sometimes then that 4 hours is worth it, because that's the time you need to wind down. You're not going to get any other time to wind down in the week. But it all comes down to knowing yourself and being real with yourself rather than kidding yourself. Which I think is super, super, super important. Yeah,
especially the way things are today. It's people, I've had clients and chats with clients where the situations aren't necessarily great, like they're feeling a certain way or feeling low because they're not really, at the end of it, they're not really respecting themselves with their own time. They're giving their time away to other people who aren't necessarily treating them nicely. So that's a massive thing. But no, I appreciate that, man. It's had some really good insights. Where can people find you then, Riz?
Advanced.co, so advnc.co on social media. That's my website as well. So that's the best place to find me. Just one thing I wanted to touch on, actually. You know how you said in terms of people grabbing your attention?
Yeah.
They're not always going to like you, but sometimes you have to say no. Like, sometimes you have to give them an option as well, like an alternative. So like, one quick thing is that like, people used to call me all the time and say, especially like when you're a business owner as well, they know that you don't have someone telling you what to do. So you could just get up and leave. And someone would say, Riz, can you take me here? Riz, can you take me there? And at the beginning, I used to do it, but then I used to realize it loses me 2 hours or 3 hours sometimes. So I used to literally say to them, because it used to be, and I used to be genuine as well, in the sense where I will pay for your Uber, just take an Uber. I don't mind, just take an Uber. I will pay for your Uber. But me paying for your Uber is going to cost me 10 quid.
Yeah.
You're taking 3 hours of my time. I can't afford that.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but I have to do that. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, then they will only call you when it's an emergency rather than just calling you because they don't respect your time. Because that's the only reason why they ask that otherwise, is because they don't respect your time. And it's not me trying to be a hard ass or me trying to be bad or anything. It's just like, I just genuinely need to spend that time on doing the things that I've already set out for that day. And if I don't get it done, it's going to be me that suffers, and you're not going to be able to do that thing for me in any way, shape, or form. So I have to do what I have to do, kind of thing. But yeah, so I just add that in because a lot of people.
I like that. I like that. No, I totally. I understand where you're coming from. It's it's interesting to do that because you're right. People do. I think because if you've not put that in place in the sense of like, okay, this is what I'm about. This is where my time is needed most. If you haven't really addressed those things from the people who you're sort of around, then they'll just do it. They'll think nothing of it. And until you do that, until you say the Uber's outside, I've already ordered it. It's a big message that you sort of send across, isn't it? But no, that's good, man. So Advanced Solutions, find you on social media. Just if you don't, you can, if you got some time, just sort of fill in people what is it you exactly do and how you actually help people.
Yeah, so business coaching, we help with the entire process, set up the basics, the marketing, the sales side of things, the processing if you want to run a franchise, and all of that side of things, because a lot of business owners, although they are successful businesses in their own right, they don't have the foundations, and so they suffer a lot when it comes to staff. They suffer a lot when they try and open a second one because they were winging it, and so it's hard for them to teach someone how to wing it, if that makes sense. So having all of that in place is what we help with on one side of things. Second side of things is websites. We do them from start to finish for clients across the country to help them to actually achieve sales. So that's the main aim, is to achieve sales. But a lot of people right now have websites just for the sake of having a website, just to be able to say, here's my website, which is just like a business card.
Yeah.
Having an app is similar to websites, but the main thing is that a lot of people used to think apps cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
They do cost more than websites, of course, but the amount it costs is nowhere near how it used to be before.
Right.
So now in 3-4 grand, you can get what you need to get. Sometimes 4 or 5 grand, depending on how much functionality you need, but you can get what you need to get. And if you're getting people on a monthly payment, after 1 year, you've made all your money back if you have just like 40, 50 customers. And most people, especially even in the fitness industry, they have more than 40, 50 customers anyway. So that's the app side of things. And the final thing, which is a very small piece of our revenue, is virtual assistant services. That's for business owners who are very busy, who need a little bit of assistance, who don't have the time to find a staff member, who don't have the energy and resources to pay for annual leave and all of that kind of thing. Instead, they just have a task or a set of tasks that need to be done on a regular basis. They outsource it to us. We get it done at a high standard. Everything is double checked as well before it goes to them. So they don't even need to worry about double checking things, and we get the job done. So that's 4 main services that we offer.
Brilliant stuff, man.
Cool.
Good stuff. And hopefully, I'm hoping that we can definitely get something going again very soon, as things pick up around here and stuff. So we'll be in definitely contact again, and we'll have to not even just work. I mean, I think I mentioned I was going to come down and see you or something, but I'm gonna have to book that in with you, aren't I?
It'd be a pleasure, I'm sure.
No, I'm looking forward to it, man. But yeah, we'll definitely catch up soon. But thanks for your time, Riz, man. I'll let you go. Crack on with your day, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care, yeah.
Bye.
See you, man. Take it easy.